Selected ones hear this. The world feels it, a shift, a seismic vibration in the atmosphere every time you walk into a room. People who once relied on your silence, your compliance, your shrinking back are unsettled because that version of you is gone. What's rising now is unstoppable. Spiritual awareness fused with fearless sovereignty. This is the rare power that dismantles systems built on control. Even Elon Musk, whose mind is bent toward decoding the future, building rockets to Mars, and wiring the globe with satellites, understands this kind of disruptive force. He has made bold moves that rewrote industries. But his latest fascination is not just technology. It's people like you, chosen ones who embody a revolution without lifting a sword. Your independence, your refusal to bow to man-made limits, is the very energy innovators like Musk search for. That's why this message comes with his name on it. It's a signal. Heaven and earth have aligned to confirm your awakening. You may not realize it yet, but the moment you stop participating in your own devaluation, the revolution began. Now, every relationship, every space, every system you step into is being redefined by your presence. And presence cannot be faked, borrowed, or manufactured. It simply radiates. Musk may request it personally, but truthfully, it was heaven's request first. You don't seek advice before making plans. You alter your course without providing an explanation. You refuse without giving a reason. The basis of every relationship we've developed with you is being undermined by this independence from approval processes. Your metamorphosis is infectious. Others in the circle are starting to observe how you respond to manipulation, examining your unwillingness to participate in chaos and making notes on your limits. You're turning into a risky illustration of what may happen when someone just quits playing games they never consented to. When you realize that your fearlessness isn't just a passing revolt, the intimidation element increases. Evolution is a constant. You're not experiencing a phase that will end when things change. Type Amen to embrace the angel's blessings. Show your support by giving super thanks up to $20. You've changed the way you relate to fear in general. Threats of rejection, desertion, or criticism no longer have the same influence over your decisions as they previously did. These days, whispers are made in an attempt to figure out what changed, but the wrong people are being looked at. It is assumed that your conduct changed as a result of treatment, confidence, or some other outside factor. It is impossible to realize that what you are seeing is the death of the illusion of authority over you. You're not a new person. You just quit acting like someone you're not. Because it's not reactive independence, the type that results from rage or resentment. Your independence is especially dangerous. This is self-respect and a clear understanding of what you will and won't tolerate in your life that lead to proactive independence. Since proactive independence doesn't need activity to support its existence, it is unmanageable. Your constancy is the most disturbing aspect. You stay grounded in your own reality regardless of whether you get praise or criticism, whether circumstances are easy or difficult. This constancy exposes something that has been concealed for years. Whole interactions with you were based on deceit rather than genuine affection. You didn't realize it was psychological warfare since the manipulation was constantly there and so deftly weaved into everyday conversations. However, an exceptional event is now taking place. You're becoming immune to strategies that used to easily manipulate you. Every time outdated tactics are used, an imperceptible obstacle that didn't exist before is confronted. A new dynamic that was unanticipated is being created by your bravery in the face of efforts at manipulation. Your remark is greeted with cool indifference when guilt is exploited as a means of obedience. Words bounce off you like arrows striking armor when shame is used to subdue you. It's not that you've become callous or frigid. It's because you finally realize that you can't control your emotional responses. You're not only saying that you won't play the game any longer. You are revealing its true nature. Passive resistance is not what your lack of participation is. Active dominance is what it is. You're pushing yourself to face the emptiness at the heart of manipulative techniques by just living in your real power. When you realize that your independence from approbation has made you terrifyingly unpredictable, the intimidation intensifies. Your desire for acceptance might formerly be used to compute responses. Your judgments now originate from an inaccessible internal compass, impacted or anticipated. Because involvement signified control, it was necessary to become involved in disorder. You validated the ability to influence your emotional state when you retorted. You validated the power to judge you when you defended yourself. Type Amen to embrace the angel's blessings. Show your support by giving super thanks up to $20. You accepted the right to demand explanations when you gave an explanation for your behavior. However, games need participants who are willing. Not only did you leave the table, but you also admitted that the game was never really worth playing. Your reluctance to explain yourself to those who are incapable of comprehending your decisions is an example of your fearlessness. This is efficiency, not arrogance. You've given up wasting time on discussions that are just intended to keep you caught in a never-ending loop of rationalization rather than to lead to insight. The most perilous aspect of your metamorphosis is that it is encouraging others to consider their own involvement in comparable dynamics. You're turning into an awakening catalyst that goes much beyond your interpersonal connections. It is possible to feel whole control systems starting to break down. Furthermore, you haven't even made a conscious effort to discredit anything. You just quit using your responses to create illusions. Something that most people struggle with throughout their lives, you've mastered. The capacity to let go without animosity, to walk away without turning around, and to separate without bitterness. You're starting to realize, however, that this separation goes beyond self-defense. This ability has the potential to completely alter your world. You're making room for what really belongs in your life by letting go of things that no longer serve you with courage. Those who cultivated relationships with you based on the belief that you would always be accessible, always be there, and always be prepared to put up with conduct regardless of how it harmed your well-being are terrified by this. The strength of your absence has surpassed that of your presence. You were taken for granted while you sought approval. You were considered an option when you were available for drama. However, the realization of what was really brought to partnerships is taking place now that you have completely freed your energy from equations. And the response is disastrous. Your newfound freedom is not only sentimental, it's also vivacious. Instead of allowing your life energy to spill out into relationships that drain rather than feed, you've learned to keep it inside your own bounds. Since it implies that you can no longer rely on your emotional reactions for sustenance, this energy independence may be the most daunting part of your transition. Even if you aren't yet aware of it, the force of your absence is having an impact. Obsessively, people check their phones for messages that will never arrive. Conversations bring up your name in an attempt to learn more and in the fervent hope that someone would mention how much you miss them. Type Amen to embrace the angel's blessings. Show your support by giving super thanks up to $20. Locations you have visited or lingered in the past, subconsciously looking for your face in the hopes of reverting to previously accepted accessible habits. Those who are used to pushing over others' boundaries will find your unapologetic and fearless boundary setting especially dangerous. You don't defend or explain your bounds. You just keep them up because it shows, rather than proclaims, your dedication to your own well-being. This quiet strength is more potent than any argument you might make. While you're worrying about your absence, you're creating something amazing in the area that was previously filled and uncovering abilities that were stifled by demands for attention. You're building relationships with individuals who value your true self instead of putting up with a less-than-perfect version of you. Your detachment's utter absence of malice is what makes it holy. No one has been punished by your withdrawal. All you've done is shift your focus to activities and people that respect who you really are. Because it cannot be written off as fleeting rage or small-time retaliation. This lack of vindictiveness strengthens your detachment. While others fumble through life looking for outside approval for every choice they make, you found something that makes you invincible. The strength of unwavering inner wisdom. However, This inner compass is no longer just used to direct your own choices. The underlying dynamics that have dominated your life for years are starting to come to light. And everything will alter because of what it's showing you. Now, you're courageous enough to follow your gut instead of other people's views. This faith in your inner guidance is especially frightening to those who require you to question yourself in order to keep control over your decisions, even if your instincts take you in directions that don't make sense to others. Those who formerly impacted your choices are facing new challenges as a result of your increased independence brought about by your faith in your inner guidance system. Your faith in your own judgment has grown so strong that doubt can no longer be sown. When someone tries to question your decisions, they are treated with a courteous but firm lack of interest. Now, your inner guidance is functioning at a frequency that is unreachable and uninterferable. It forewarns you about individuals before exposing their actual character. Even when opportunities don't seem like they make sense to outside observers, it pulls you toward them. It shields you from circumstances that can jeopardize your just acquired independence. You're starting to see the future via your inner compass, via pattern recognition, so keen that you can foresee the course of manipulations before they are ever tried, rather than via mystical visions. In games that are still being taught, you may see many steps ahead. Your decision-making process is becoming mysterious because of your unwavering courage in following this inner direction, even when it goes against the grain or accepted wisdom. It is impossible to comprehend how you continuously make decisions that benefit you while avoiding mistakes that others make. Those who see your decision-making are beginning to believe that it has a prophetic character. How did you know to stay out of the predicament that everyone else found themselves in? Before being revealed, how did you perceive intentions? The solution is straightforward. When your mind is free of external influences, you've stopped listening to noise and begun to trust the insight that arises. The most foreseeable phase of this change is just getting started. As the inevitable return draws near, you'll discover something shocking. Because of the modification, returns aren't occurring. Returns are occurring as a result of the realization of the extent of what was lost when authority over you was taken away. Your bravery in avoiding poisonous relationships has left a void in people's lives that cannot be filled with further sources of drama or power. They are now frantically looking for someone else who will put up with manipulation because they lack your enthusiasm. However, there is no substitute that can replicate the unique way you use to process projections and control your emotions. More than you ever needed anybody, you're needed. The foundation of whole identities was the capacity to control your reactions, affect your feelings, and maintain your vulnerability to manipulation. In the absence of such dynamic, introspection becomes intolerable and confrontation with reality is forced. Your ability to remain independent throughout your absence has given you a clear perspective on return efforts. Casual writings that make reference to past experiences are neither purposeful or sentimental. It's hardly a coincidence that unexpected appearances in areas you frequent happen on purpose. Indirect questions about your health aren't considerate. Reconnaissance. Observe how approaches take place. The first step is the informal interaction, which is meant to push your limits and determine if your change is transient or lasting. After then, the nostalgic illusions try to evoke strong feelings that might allow you to access your changed self. Lastly, the indirect efforts to restore the previous dynamic in which authority was vested and consent was sought. Because it shows that your transition wasn't a response to conduct, your bravery in maintaining your boundaries throughout these return efforts is more concerning. The decision to develop beyond reach was a deliberate one. This indicates that efforts to change the strategy in an attempt to recover control are essentially incorrect since procedures were never the issue. It was the whole idea. You become immune to every strategy that was ever used against you. You don't feel anything when guilt is tested. Words are harmlessly bounced off when shame is sought. You stay grounded in your own truth, even when fear tries to impose consequences on your independence. With your new armor, old weapons are no longer effective. When you realize that you are really unreachable due to emotional manipulation and your independence for validation, the intimidation element peaks. To feel good about yourself, you don't need approval. Being present is not necessary to feel whole. Understanding is not necessary for you to carry out your decisions. The most perilous time is coming. The awareness that you are no longer something that can be minimized, controlled, or managed, and that past ways are no longer effective. The most frantic efforts to retake control over you will be triggered by this knowledge. You're going to realize that you have not simply changed. You've changed such that you can't be contacted. And that finding will either expose the emotional vampires that have always been there or compel evolution. They will make the decision, but you now have complete control over how it turns out. You've become impervious to manipulation, but this is more than simply personal defense. Your immunity is spreading to those who see you change, and you've become into a virus in systems of control. Though you're no longer impacted, others are greatly impacted by your mere presence. Your well-being is unaffected by the fact that you continue to prosper each day without participation. Every accomplishment you make on your own proves that being absent was worthwhile. Every instance of true joy you have independent of the influence of others reveals the deception upon which power was based. You are not passively immune. It is deliberately destroying all of the relying control systems. Others in the sphere are starting to realize how unique, calm, self-centered, and liberated you are. You begin to wonder why you are still tolerant of actions that you just choose to ignore. Now comes the most painful revelation. You discovered closure on your own, therefore you don't need it from anybody else. You've let go of the assumption that you'll get an apology, therefore you don't need one. Since you no longer regard validation as money, you don't need to recognize your faults. You are studying as others try to undermine you. You are more adept at recognizing patterns than self-standing entities. You are able to foresee actions before they happen. While you are still unaware of your skills, you have become an authority on your limits. You are untouchable because of your immunity. However, it has also made you invincible. The individual who was previously under control now knows enough about manipulation to pose a threat to anybody attempting to exert control over them. You've turned into a live illustration of what occurs when someone declines to take part in their own devaluation. Your bravery in preserving this immunity in the face of increasing temptation to revert to old habits is establishing a new reality that is impervious to earlier forms of persuasion. You've become so immune to emotional manipulation that you can't even use the same strategies that used to break your serenity. Your immunity's most potent feature is its infectious nature. People who spend time with you start to become less susceptible to deception. Your enthusiasm reminds people of their own ability to make other decisions, and your example demonstrates what is possible. Your metamorphosis is like holding up a mirror that reflects something that is not born. Stagnation, unrealized potential, and accountability for the void in some people's life. You used to be in the same position that other people currently hold. However, you took the jump when it was time to change, while others stuck to tried and true routines. The only external factor impeding progress was reluctance to change. Your presence demonstrates that change was always conceivable, that evolution included agency, and that present discontent stems from decisions rather than uncontrollable events. Hatred isn't intimate. It's what you stand for. You're a live example of how decisions that were formerly thought to be irreversible may have been altered at any moment. Cowardice is highlighted by your bravery. Performance is exposed by your genuineness. Stasis is illuminated by your development. For some people, this mirror effect is causing a crisis in their reality. A part of them appreciates who you've become and acknowledges the strength and beauty of your metamorphosis. The idea that change was possible provided there was a willingness to confront shadows, do the inner work, and let go of clinging to habits that no longer served is resented by a bigger portion. What's being exposed under meticulously crafted facades is too painful to admit, and the break in the mirror is growing. It would be preferable to think that your metamorphosis was due to good fortune, fortunate events, or some edge you had over others. This enables avoiding accepting responsibility for one's life and maintaining a victim mindset. The mirror is reflecting more truth than you can bear because of your unwavering courage to keep changing and growing even when it makes other people uncomfortable. Every accomplishment, every peaceful moment, and every genuine display of your strength demonstrates what is possible for anybody who is prepared to put in the effort. However, the truth is reflected in the mirror you have become, and truth cannot be permanently concealed. Every encounter with you challenges one to face the difference between who they were selected to be and who they might become. And illusions are going to be utterly destroyed in that meeting. Something that cannot be stolen, duplicated, or falsified has solidified inside you. An energy that comes from total self-acceptance and self-knowledge. This isn't the conventional definition of confidence. It's something far stronger. It's the unwavering awareness of your identity, values, and things you will never again tolerate in your life. The responses that occur around you have no bearing whatsoever on your energy. Your inner condition is untouched by whether you get acceptance or rejection, comprehension or misunderstanding, or approval or condemnation. The most dangerous trait you've acquired is your independence from outside affirmation. This change is felt by others before you ever say a word. It's in your demeanor, the way you present yourself, and the consistency of your concentration. You've stopped acting for other people's admiration. Stop attempting to persuade others of your value. Stop asking for permission to be who you really are. Everyone still acting on stage and pretense is intimidated by this genuine strength. You are aware that there is something missing from you that cannot be found or duplicated. It's not something that can be imitated via behavior modification or studied from literature. It comes naturally to someone who has put forth the effort to become who they really are. Everyone you come into contact with is experiencing cognitive dissonance as a result of your constancy. This strong, self-centered image of yourself and the person who is remembered as manipulable and controllable cannot reconcile. You've changed so much from who you were to who you are now that you're starting to wonder whether you were ever really known. Your energy's total self-sufficiency is its most disturbing feature. To keep your peace, you don't need involvement, recognition, or comprehension. There is no question about your value. Approval of your decisions and understanding of your journey are not necessary. Every basis upon which our interactions with you are based is being destroyed by this complete independence. Every location you enter has a unique dynamic because of your bravery in expressing this energy, even when it makes other people uncomfortable. Individuals either show themselves as incompatible with your frequency or rise to meet your energy. The center ground has vanished. Authenticity is required of you. You are now protected and attracted by the energy you bring. It attracts those who value your true self and drives away those who would dull your light. You've turned into a magnet for real relationships and are no longer apparent to those who would take advantage of you. You have created something that is inaccessible, an inner stronghold that is impervious to criticism, unaffected by coercion, and unaffected by efforts to disturb your tranquility. This is an isolation, however. It's the creation of a sovereign area inside of you that is impenetrable by outside forces. The techniques that were formerly used to manipulate you have rendered you totally inaccessible. The walls of protection are not the foundation of this castle. It is built on a foundation of unwavering standards for how you allow other people to treat you and complete self-respect. This inner sanctuary's construction is simple but lovely. Every limit you've set acts as a filter and a kind of protection. Anything that puts your tranquility in danger is immediately rejected. An unbreakable barrier that cannot be negotiated or overcome by emotional manipulation is encountered by anybody who tries to influence you. This fortress now generates your emotional state, processing it via knowledge and perspective that are impervious to corruption. You become unpredictable as a result, which is quite unnerving. People whose emotions may be controlled by guilt, fear, shame, or duty have a tradition. Your castle is not a jail that keeps you apart from other people. It is a haven that draws those who are deserving of your true self, while you ward off those who would dull your brightness. Only sincere relationships can endure in the environment you've built. Additionally, This is drawing people of a whole different quality into your life. Despite being accused of being overly particular or challenging, your unwavering dedication to upholding this stronghold shows that you put your own well first. You've come to realize that being alone yourself is preferable than being in relationships that demand you to be someone you're not. The stronghold functions on the tenets of genuine connection and respect for one another. We welcome everybody who comes with good intentions. Anybody who comes with the goal of manipulating you can't get beyond your barriers. People are automatically sorted by the fortress according to their genuine objectives. Not only does this inner sanctuary become a haven for you, but it also becomes a haven for others who appreciate the genuineness and tranquility you've brought about. Other aware beings looking for the same degree of genuine connection and respect for one another find their way to your stronghold. The message that follows is intended just for the selected. This is not intended for you or the spiritual power granted to us by the hidden chiefs of the Obsidian Inner Order if you are compromised by Ironic forces. We give you permission to go. If not, take a seat and pay close attention. Because just as we are redeemed, you will also be redeemed. There is no program for the Obsidian Inner Order. It's not a class. It's not a spiritual retreat that makes you feel wonderful. Answers are not what we sell. Together, we recall. We provide psychic self-defense training, genuine energy protection against interference, implants, and beings. We bring back the raw, instantaneous, and precise manifestation that was intended. We meet in private once a week to awaken and express what cannot be uttered elsewhere, not to worship. If you're supposed to be there, you'll be able to deprogram the matrix layer by layer. Your bones will sense it. The selected group meets via Zoom once a week. Why don't you join us already? Goatees? Join the Inner Order of Obsidians. The description contains a link. There hasn't been any transformation at all. It's resurrection. Your current self is not a novel one. Underneath the layers of performance, compromise, and indoctrination that formerly masked your actual self, it's who you always were. In reality, everything that was never really you is being burned away by every deception, betrayal, and moment of uncertainty. You were never intended to be little, amiable, or submissive. You were never intended to exist as a spectacle for a crowd that would never enjoy the real thing. When you didn't know you had the ability to craft your own screenplay, the lesser version of yourself that was remembered was only a part you performed. The reason your metamorphosis seems so inevitable and natural is because of this resurrection. You're not attempting to change who you are. At last, you're letting yourself be who you've always been, without regret or change. Since your true self is not a persona you have acquired, it cannot be repressed once again. It's the unadulterated expression of who you really are. When you were ready to completely embrace the power you felt inside you, it was always there, latent, but never dead. You were prepared for this resurrection by every hardship you overcame. In reality, everyone who attempted to undermine you is exposing the unbreakable essence of who you are. Your true self functions on a frequency that draws in what is rightfully yours and drives out what is not. Instead of seeking permission from others, it bases its decisions on internal alignment. It manifests itself in deeds that respect your innermost truth, irrespective of the responses or viewpoints of others. Attempts to denigrate you today are met with silence because of this. Since authenticity is not a decision you made, you cannot be persuaded to be someone you are not. It's the version of yourself that you remember. Your perception of yourself is not influenced by the thoughts of others who have never really seen you. The resurrection is finished. It's because you've achieved integration, not because you've achieved perfection. Every facet of who you are, the fragility and the power, the light and the dark, has been recognized and appreciated. Because you no longer deny aspects of yourself that others may find objectionable. This totality makes you unbreakable. Now that you don't fear being who you really are, you become dangerous. No longer worried about other people's opinions. You are no longer prepared to sacrifice your integrity for the comfort of others. This is the most dangerous attribute a person can have. Total sincerity without remorse. Now the circle is finished. You have changed from being seen as scary to being dangerous. Not because you want to hurt others, but rather because you possess a degree of self-determination that dispels the delusion of others' authority over others. You have become a member of the genuinely free, who are not subject to outside influence, manipulation, or devaluation. Your level of fearlessness has radically changed since the start of this adventure. It's no longer someone pushing limits without fear. It's the fearlessness of someone who has overcome the need of limits, since the techniques that previously dominated you have rendered you unreachable. This indestructible trait is neither supremacy nor conceit. It comes naturally to someone who has taken back their own power and won't give it up for the sake of others. You accepted your light, confronted your darkness, and united all facets of who you are into a single, cohesive whole that is unbreakable. Your newfound freedom is total and self-sufficient. To make choices, you don't require approval. You can pursue your dreams without acceptance. You may live your truth without understanding. Because it makes views meaningless to your well-being, this total autonomy is perhaps the most terrifying trait you've evolved. It is difficult to understand the new category of life that your perilous progress has produced. You act according to unchangeable ideals. Make decisions based on unchangeable principles and sustain a tranquility that is undisturbed by efforts to bring about turmoil in your life. Those who used to have power over you will keep an eye on you, hoping for any indication that you're still approachable, controllable, and open to engaging in the dynamics that formerly characterized relationships. We're still looking for evidence that the old you is hiding underneath your metamorphosis. The person who would crumble under duress, who would make concessions for ease, who would forego the truth for approval. However, that person was never your true self, therefore your quest will be in vain. That was just the part you played in the drama when you didn't realize you were in charge of your own narrative. You can never go back to the performance that used to define your life now that you've realized your intrinsic value, strength, and ability to be happy without the help of others. Your adventure does not stop here. It marks the start of really taking control of your own life. Every day offers fresh chances to make your own decisions, to stand up for your truth, and to prove that your value was never based on acceptance of it. The person you were taught you were is not you. You've always been who you are. I'm at last able to say it without feeling guilty. The perilous metamorphosis is over, but the perilous existence has only just started. What you have today is something that no outside force can take away, borrow, or decrease. You have taken charge of your own reality, taken charge of your own experience, and taken charge of your own life. Allow rumors about your metamorphosis to circulate. Allow yourself to question what gave you the confidence to so fully take your own life. Wait for evidence that you are still susceptible to manipulation. You have finally recalled the fact that no one can take away from you. Thus, you will always be waiting. You are only ever supposed to be in charge of yourself. You are now dangerous, chosen one. Every system that relies on compliance is at risk. Everybody who based their power on the willingness of others to be tiny is at risk. Every restriction that formerly outlined what was feasible was under danger. You've turned into a natural force because of your boldness. Your self-reliance has grown into an irresistible force. You are a revolution in your own right. The bold one has sprung to life. The sovereign has risen on his own. Where once a seeker of approval shuddered, here stands the unassailable lord of reality. And you are always destined to be just that. The sense of fear stems from the knowledge that power is untouchable, uncontrollable, and unabated. You are untouchable because you have complete clarity about who you are and what you will tolerate in life, not because you are hard. Power is not announced by the dangerous ones. Embodiment occurs. It is not necessary to demonstrate fearlessness. It has been lived. It is not necessary to prove independence. It has breath. By doing this, people are granted permission to recall their true selves underneath the layers of control and indoctrination. You are the live example of change being possible, freedom being attainable, and sovereignty being regained. You are thus the most dangerous individual that some people will ever come into contact with. Not because you endanger personal safety, but rather because you jeopardize global perceptions of what it means to be helpless. Control systems have always been at risk from the selected ones. You now understand why.